The man ate and drank nothing. For 9 years he played the same game. But when he finally beat the game, he was transported into the game world. And faced with this sudden change, what on earth was going on? Just before that, I was lying in a hospital bed. I accidentally discovered a single-player rap game, even features rare 2D graphics. At the time, it was free to play, so I decided to give it a try and installed the game. But soon after, I became completely hooked. What makes this game so special is that if you make even one wrong judgment, that leads to the character's death. The carefully cultivated character will disappear and must be started over again, and I, with firm determination, kept playing this game through school, graduation, and work, even when I was fired. Finally, in the boss's room, I clicked the confirm button with excited feelings. Excitement and anticipation filled my brain, but the next second, the screen emitted a bright light. Everything before me instantly turned white, a ringing filled my ears, an unidentified heat spread through my skin. I instantly lost consciousness. Then when I opened my eyes again, what illuminated the darkness wasn't dazzling lights, but flickering torches, and everywhere around me are muscular wild men. There's also an uncle raising his hands. He shouted loudly, "Young warriors, now it's time to come up one by one and choose the WQ that suits you." Although it's a language I've never heard before, I actually understood it. After calming down and looking around, I concluded that I had been transported into a game world. At this moment, the first thing I need to do is assess the situation. With this thought in mind, I lowered my head and was startled, my body trembling. My thick, strong hands were full of power with muscles, and they moved according to my will. I had become a barbarian. The barbarians whose names were called stepped forward one by one to make their choices. The barbarian next to me was breathing heavily, his eyes filled with fear. He looked noticeably different from the others. He even let out a terrified sound. Impossible. This is a scene from the Dungeons & Dragons game. So it wasn't just me who was transported into the game. This kid is just like me. At this moment, the Uncle Barbarian suddenly stood in front of us, who was speaking. Seeing this unusual expression, it clearly wasn't just because of the noise. I immediately said it wasn't me. And Uncle Dog the Barbarian's gaze shifted to the person beside him. After seeing the terrified and panicked expression on his face, without saying a word, he directly solved the problem with an axe on the spot. I was shocked and tried to remain calm, but the only question in my mind was, why kill him? Then I also heard the uncle's explanation. Kajua's son, the soul of Volcano Hill, is filled with evil spirits. The moment I heard the team leader's words, I instinctively pieced the information together in my mind. Clue 1, some real-world players have been brought into the game. Clue 2, these players are considered evil spirits here. Clue 3, if this fact is discovered, it's game over. Although I blood, the ritual is still ongoing. But now there's one big problem. I don't even know my own name. If no one moves after their name is called, it will definitely seem suspicious. I quickly made a decision in a very short time. As the number of people decreased, I had to take a gamble with a name no one would respond to. Bjorn the son of Yandel stepped forward. The expected moment finally arrived. 2 seconds had passed after the name was called, but no one left. At the same time I realized this fact, I took step. I walked toward the chieftain, my shoulders held high and straight. In the end, my choice was the right one. The chieftain's gaze showed no suspicion. I suppressed my strange excitement and adjusted my breathing. I now know my name. Bjorn Yandel. Now I am faced with the second problem. Choosing to Q. I have organized my thoughts. The barbarians in the game have no magical abilities, but they have incredible physical strength. Therefore, while playing the game, I always choose to engage in close-range attacks with Q. Although it looks cool, the problem is it's too easy to die. After making a few wrong decisions, I developed my own way of leveling up. I immediately and decisively opted for shield block with WA, because in my nearly 10 years of gaming experience, it was only the shield that helped me reach the highest level. When I selected U, this Krr ceremony officially came to an end. When the barbarians complete the Krr ceremony and become true warriors, they must participate in the tribe's maze trial. And here in the city, where we followed the minister, there is a maze. With the minister's shout, these young barbarians shouted as they rushed towards the city. Although I was unwilling, but I could only shout loudly from behind. After running for a while, fortunately, the savage leader at the front suddenly stopped. Turning around, he shouted confidently, "I think I'm lost." Then, amidst the complaints of these young savages, the clan leader's daughter, Anna, stepped forward. Under the expectant gazes of many, Anna happily takes the lead. But she's no different from the previous leader. We were still being led astray. It's only now that I realize these barbarians are really just pure muscle with simple minds. Because no matter who's in the lead, the people behind will only follow. They never think about whether the route is correct. As I was new to this world, I didn't want to be too conspicuous, so I approached Einar and told her that we should just follow the explorers ahead. She thought it was a good idea and excitedly led us to the entrance of the labyrinth. When I saw the magnificent entrance to the labyrinth, I hesitated. Was entering the labyrinth the right choice at this moment? Because in the real world, I have always been plagued by illness. Can someone like me defeat monsters with my fists? Can I become a true warrior? Every warrior must regularly pay taxes. If you cannot provide, death is the only option. There are two ways to make money. The first is to enter dungeons and fight wild monsters. The second is to work at the tavern. The problem is that these taverns won't hire barbarians. It was at that moment that Anna appeared behind me. She actually asked me how she could become as smart as you. You're the smartest barbarian I've ever met. Then after my half-hearted response, she promised to repay me if she made it out of the maze alive. When I asked her if she wasn't afraid of death, she answered resolutely, "Of course I'm afraid of death, but for a warrior the absence of battle is far more terrifying." Seeing her unwavering resolve, I hesitated no longer. I boldly stepped into the labyrinth. This man was unexpectedly transported into the game world he had played for 9 years, becoming a barbarian. However, just after entering here, the system prompted that I was about to die. Just now, I was full of confidence, thinking that with this strong body, and my knowledge of the game combined, I could fully survive in the maze. But after entering the maze, only now do I realize how naive my thoughts were. The place I'm in is completely pitch black. There is no light at all. If this were according to the game's settings, there would be crystals on the walls acting as light sources. Of course, the first floor also has dark areas. It's just a small part leading to the second floor, and I might be in these dark areas. I try calling my companions names, but no one answers. Right now it's just me. Then I brace myself with my shield in one hand, and support myself on the wall with the other, slowly advancing. Suddenly a sharp pain shot through my ankle. I had stepped into a trap. I really want to let out a scream right now, but I'm forcing myself to endure it, because there's only one type of monster that uses traps on this floor, and that's the goblin, and this guy is definitely nearby. I instinctively raised my shield to cover my body, because the cunning goblin might be hiding in the darkness, quietly waiting for me to tire out. No matter what, I'll first do what I need to do. After lowering my posture, I use both hands to open the trap and pull my foot out. If I were wearing leather shoes, it wouldn't hurt this much. At this moment, my right foot is gradually losing sensation. This trap is even poisonous. I have to take it down before I completely lose feeling. I started shouting greetings to the whole goblin family, but no matter how harshly I cursed, I still couldn't hear any sound. Now I felt like an idiot. But as I quickened my pace to leave, I actually heard footsteps behind me. That cunning fellow was indeed watching from the shadows. I tried to quicken my pace. The footsteps behind me quickened as well. When I suddenly turned around to face the enemy, everything in front of me was pitch black. I couldn't see anything. At this moment, my right leg was still bleeding. I knew the nature of these goblins very well. The more the prey struggles, they will get even more excited. It is waiting for me to bleed to death first, before coming to collect the body. Thinking of this, I changed my plan, stopped in my tracks, then I staggered and fell to the ground. My forehead hit a rock, and the pain felt like it was about to split open, but I couldn't make a sound. From now on, it's a battle of patience. If that guy thinks I've already fallen and approaches me first, that's my victory. But if I really fall before that, that's my defeat. That guy's footsteps slowly drew closer, so slow it's enough to make you yawn, just as I thought. Although the prey had fallen, the sly guy was still suspicious. Then this guy actually threw a rock at me, to confirm whether I was really dead. When I gave no other response, this guy joyfully walked toward me. From the sound of his jump, I can feel how happy I am. I suppress my excitement. I calmly judge the distance by sound. When the sound gets close to my ear, I suddenly stand up and throw a punch at that guy. But miss, that agile guy actually dodged my punch, as I regret not judging the distance well. A surge suddenly surged through my body, a wonderful feeling. The next second I pinned that hateful goblin. The feeling this body gave me was far more exhilarating than my disease-ridden body. In the real world, under my countless punches, the goblin below became still. Then the goblin's corpse gradually disappeared. A small stone appeared on the ground. This is the currency in the game, a level 9 horse stone. In my memories, its value is about the cost of a piece of bread. But no matter what, I still gave a bitter smile. I had put so much effort into this. All I got was this horse stone. Right? This is a game world. This maze also has stronger monsters, and killing them will yield treasure. In the city outside, the other races I know still exist. Now I'm crawling on the ground with my feet completely worn out, dragging myself along. First the uninjured foot, so there was no pain, and my speed of movement was actually faster than before. The most important thing is, I won't step in any more traps. In return, my elbows and knees have a slight sting, but it's completely bearable. There's nothing I wouldn't do to survive. But this moment the system prompted, due to continuous excessive bleeding, I'm facing death. My despair, I saw a crystal sparkling at the end of the distant corridor. Most importantly, I struggled to climb. I closed my eyes and opened them again. This time I clearly saw about 5 or 6 people. A group appeared directly ahead. They also discovered me near death. After seeing that I was a novice, a leader, asked the priestess in the group if she was willing to treat me. I was shocked to hear that there was a female priestess in their team. Having a female priestess meant that the team must be made up of elites. But this priestess didn't want to heal. Then the man with a sword at his waist pulled a potion from his bag and threw it. After I received his healing, my health began to recover. The recovery process using this potion was incredibly painful. I slowly got on my feet. Just as I was about to thank him, the blonde man asked a question. He wanted to buy any secret passage routes I might know. Hearing this, I understood. That's why he saved me. But this is better. After all, unprovoked help is far more dangerous. When I truthfully told them that the entrance to the labyrinth was here, the man recalled reading about it in a book he'd once read, that there would be areas of darkness, but that such a thing only happened once every 100 years. Hearing this, I was unlucky. Something that only happens once in 100 years, and it just so happened that I, a beginner, encountered it first. I looked at the direction they left. I quickly ran over and picked up the shield that had fallen on the ground. I reorganized my equipment and started my leveling journey. From the experience gained from the kill earlier, with the help of this crystal I regained my sight. These goblins are not dangerous at all. I can even see their traps clearly. Meanwhile, the adventure team that left earlier successfully reached the entrance to the second floor. As the blonde man triggered the mechanism, the entrance gradually lit up, but a marksman in the team discovered something unusual, blood-soaked trap. A single unidentified sandal lay there forlornly. Bloodstains from the trap stretched along the curving passage. They guessed that this was my sandal, and only now did they realize that someone seriously wounded had crawled for more than 10 kilometers in the pitch black. This is something none of them in the team could do. In this world, to sleep soundly, you must find companions to team up with, but if you end up with a creepy old man as your companion, the consequences are unimaginable. Just before this, I've been fighting continuously in the maze. Several major issues have arisen. The first is the food issue. The food bag given by the tribe leader has a hole in it. 5 out of the 7 days' worth of food have been lost. Right now we can only make do with less. The second issue is that the system has notified me. I need to replenish the water supply. Although water is an even more important resource than food. But the tribe leader did not provide water, so I concluded that self-sufficiency in the maze shouldn't be an issue. Indeed, I found a water source in no time. I followed the sound of dripping water and discovered a small pond. An adventurer was already drinking from it. This person was from a team other than the blonde one. The first adventurer I encountered, he saw me afar and immediately turned around to leave. He probably didn't want to be associated with someone as bloodied as me. After resting and recovering, I took a moment to check my load. I counted and it amounted to 44 loaves of bread. It reminded me of the time I nearly died. I have to say, it's a lucky thing right now. But there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. In return, I feel a deep sense of drowsiness. Since I'm a living being, I should maintain sleep. However, how can I sleep in a maze full of monsters? There are 2 options. Entrust my life to fate and take a nap. Or find companions who can protect each other. Everyone must be equally exhausted now. It's more reliable to find a suitable person to form a temporary alliance. After making my decision, I started searching for a partner in the maze, but I was rejected by everyone in a row. They don't like barbarians. They think barbarians are unreliable. Just when I was feeling angry, a man who looked to be around 40 years old, smiling, walked over to me. He asked if I was looking for a partner. At that moment, someone actively came to offer partnership, which surprised me, but due to my exhaustion, I agreed right away. It seems that the experienced man first told him his name. Then, while shaking hands, he said, although having 3 friends at night is the best, it seems more exhausting to go looking for them. It sounds like he hopes for the 2 of us to be alone, with a tone like a seasoned pro. It always feels like I'm being taken advantage of. I quickly pulled my hand away from his. He also kindly told me how to use it. This might be how people here perceive barbarians. Then the man took out a blanket and covered himself. He used his backpack as a pillow and lay down, soon he was fast asleep. After waiting for 2 hours, finally it's time for me to sleep. I'll find an empty spot and lie down. Then I'll pretend to be drowsy. That's a given. Even if this old man seems friendly, he doesn't have any intention of harming me. But how can I trust someone I've just met? But nothing happened in the next 2 hours. I can't believe I stubbornly stayed awake past this time. I started to regret it. I should have gone to sleep properly. Now it's his turn to sleep. I was sitting aside, still wondering if this person could be trusted. At this point, I could barely keep my eyes open. Suddenly, hand slapped me awake. Since I fell asleep while keeping watch, to show my goodwill, I let the uncle sleep a little longer. But the uncle still forgave me with a cheerful smile. The more he did this, the more suspicious I became of him. He gave off the impression of being a kind-hearted scammer. He was the first to suggest not looking for other members. He didn't blame me for the smell. He even refused the cost of being able to sleep again, because in this dangerous maze, excessive enthusiasm when meeting someone for the first time always feels out of place. When I lay down again, lost in thought, a primal sense of danger suddenly hit me. I opened my eyes wide. What came into view was the uncle's smiling face, but his hands were raised, holding a large hammer. It was about to strike my face. As a body trained as a warrior, I instinctively dodged to the side in a critical moment. When he saw that I had actually avoided his attack, the uncle showed a panicked expression. In that instant, I was filled with killing intent. I raised my shield and smashed it hard against the man. His face was already swollen and red. His nose was also bleeding. This man's strength was slightly stronger than a goblin's. No wonder he had to resort to such underhanded tactics. Now the bruised and battered man knelt on the ground. I slowly walked up to him. I questioned him why he ambushed me. He hastily explained that he simply coveted my shield and magic stones. However, I didn't believe his words, because killing an adventurer in the maze is a very serious crime. No one would attack others for such a small amount of supplies. Seeing that he wouldn't tell the truth, I immediately unleashed a powerful Vajra kick, striking his chin. Then I stepped on him. I asked again. At that moment, he hurriedly told the truth. It turned out that the barbarian's heart was made from a newly developed magical material. If one could obtain the barbarian's heart, it would be worth an unimaginable reward. That's why he had planned to ambush me while I was asleep. Just when he thought he could save his life by telling everything, a sweet smile appeared on my lips. I immediately raised my shield. Smash it down hard. Then I received a system prompt. First kill completed. I also a large hammer, leather boots, a pocket watch, a backpack, everything he had on him. At this point, I had finally escaped the life of a caveman, and what amused me was, after killing, I ironically felt more human. After I organized my supplies, I got up and headed deeper into the maze. I encountered goblins along the way. I could kill them with a single blow, but the fatigue in my body is becoming more and more overwhelming. I decided to look for allies from my own kind this time. However, the situation I encountered on this journey was completely different from yesterday. People were inviting me to team up and rest, but when it comes to humans, I find it hard to trust them anymore. After I declined their invitation, what we learned from their return, that the barbarians by this time had already entered the second level of the maze. Our only choices are the other races, the elves who value agreements, and also the dwarves who are as unrestrained as the barbarians. After wandering in the maze for about an hour, finally I discovered a wandering outsider. The moment our eyes met, a strange, suffocating silence suddenly appeared. The elf in front of me was confident and aloof just a second ago, but in the next moment, she was pitiably fragile. Just before this sharp-eared elf, sitting with her back against the wall, she looks at me silently with her eyes. She seems to have no companions tonight, nodding off by herself, her amber eyes shining like a cat's, full of confusion and vigilance. She probably wants me to quickly ignore her and forget her expression, but contrary to her, my first thought is, found it. So I observed her condition first, but the elf woman nervously stood up from her seat at that moment. Her posture was unnatural, though. I saw an abdominal wound, not deep, but a long gap. This certainly didn't look like an injury inflicted by a goblin, so I asked, were you hurt by humans? The female elf didn't answer in time. I guess I looked too fierce. Of course, I can understand. Even I, when injured, would be startled if someone like me approached, especially if the other person is a woman. I was just thinking about that when, suddenly, the female elf unceremoniously thudded to her knees. Unbeknownst to her, her eyes filled with tears. Sir, please don't hurt me. I have elderly parents to support and younger siblings to care for. Please spare me. This female elf is so spineless. To be honest, I thought she was the cold and ruthless type. My impression is that female elves are quite cold-blooded. If I had known she was this type of character, I would have approached her in a gentler way. Then, to avoid further misunderstandings, gave her a smile first, and incidentally said, don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. The eyes are the window to the soul. As long as there's time to calm down, the other person will know that I am speaking from the heart. But before I finish speaking, do you really have to do this? You sound Uncle Lit. Bullshit, what exactly did I do? It feels like I'm a perverted freak bullying high school students at the school gate, but I'm clearly just a savage. Just once, please let me go this once. The longer my silence lasted, the more the elf girl pleaded with a wronged expression. I was speechless. What kind of life do these barbarians live? How could their image be so bad? I involuntarily sighed. Let's heal her first, we can talk about the rest later. Then I took a step back, took out some herbs and bandages from my bag and threw them over. Seeing the herb, the female elf looked at me in confusion. Why was I giving her healing herbs and helping her? She unconsciously asked a few questions. Does helping require reason? She spoke without thinking. I don't know why, but it feels like I'm speaking harshly. But there's no way to clear up her doubts otherwise. So I continued explaining. I need a nighttime companion. Although in this situation saying something like this makes me seem like trash, it's definitely not a bad thing for her. She's hurt, lack of sleep, plus her striking appearance. No matter how you look at it, her situation was far worse than mine. Then I turned around, letting her bandage her wounds first. But not long after, I heard that she had already bandaged her wounds. So fast I didn't expect your skills to be quite good. It seems that the wariness in your eyes has also lessened. Taking this opportunity, let me introduce myself. I am Bjorn, the son of the Barbarian Yandel. She weakly murmured the word Owen. I guess Owen is her name. Although I don't know what you've misunderstood, but what you think will happen won't. Although she replied that she understood, the fear in her eyes remained unchanged. I could still see that she couldn't lower her guard. I directly asked her without hesitation why she was so afraid of me. She began to tell me her story, because decades ago, barbarians and elves were enemies. Although the war is over, so he'll be terrified to see me now. At this moment, Owen patted his chest and said he had no ill intentions towards the savage. I don't want to fight you either. Hearing her words, I looked at her seriously. I have no ill intentions towards you either. So will you be my nighttime companion? Just for one night. You must be really tired right now. Why don't we cooperate? Listen. Owen frowned. She thought the barbarians placed great importance on credibility, so she asked me to swear by a warrior's honor. I won't harm her. Hearing this, I also swore to him on my warrior's honor. At the same time, Owen swore on the tribe's behalf not to harm me. Now I can finally get a good night's sleep. Then I handed my pocket watch to Owen, asking him to wake me in 2 hours. But just in case, I'll just pretend to sleep for 10 more minutes. Suddenly, Owen's voice wakes me up. I groggily get up. He tells me 2 hours have already passed. At this moment, I have no idea when I fell asleep. Could it be that this blanket and bed are just too comfortable, causing me to fall asleep right away? So I lent Owen my blanket. She felt very warm and immediately fell asleep. It seems she was very tired too. She must have had a tough day just like me. Finally having some free time, I unconsciously began to think about what happened in reality. Will anyone come to see me? Does anyone know I'm missing? Forget it. I don't want to think about it. Even if I go back, I won't have what I want. More than an hour has passed. 10 minutes until I have to wake Owen up. I looked at Owen. I thought this female elf could be useful in battle. It seems she could become a long-term companion. While I was lost in thought, 2 humans by. They saw me and the female elf together. They walked over and asked about our relationship, but I didn't give them a pleasant response. I gestured for them to leave quickly. Under my pressure, they reluctantly retreated, but their whispering gave me a bad feeling. I had a bad premonition. Those 2 must have come looking for Owen, so I quickly woke Owen up. When I woke Owen up and told her not to sleep, she actually said, 5 more minutes of sleep. How can you still sleep when you might not even have a life left? The innocent and adorable elf in front of me could actually make a man lose his lineage. Just a moment ago, when I called Owen to wake up, she was still pretending to be asleep. Because when those 2 people arrived earlier, I secretly checked. That girl deliberately covered her face with a blanket, clearly already awake. To avoid wasting time arguing, I directly grabbed her shoulders and forcefully helped her up. Why were you pretending to be asleep? Startled by me, she mumbled incoherently and avoided my gaze. For someone like me, who needs to gather intelligence and make judgments quickly, this is a very frustrating attitude. When I grabbed her chin and made her look into my eyes, Owen helplessly spoke up. If I wake up, I'll worry that you will leave me all alone. That's indeed the case. At the moment, she and I are just night partners with no further commitment. Stand guard for each other, protect each other. The moment Irving opened his eyes, both sides' vows were over. I first let out a deep sigh. It has nothing to do with them, but the badges on their clothes are the same as those of the people who tried to harm me before. They should be from the same group. Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but curse. It wasn't just 2 people, it was actually a whole group. The situation became even worse. I was started to worry. Should I just say goodbye to this elf here? But looking at her, she seemed to be only about 20 years old. A feeling of pity arose within me. So I decided to take her away from this dangerous place first. Later during the run, I also grasped the rest of the situation. On the first night, she made a one-night arrangement with a man, but halfway through their sleep, she heard a strange noise. When she opened her eyes and looked across, she saw the other person had taken off his pants and was about to do something. After she finally managed to escape, that man's colleagues would attack her every time they saw her. Her physical injuries were a result of this. Later, she learned from those who attacked her that the man before was the leader of a group called Hansu Lee, and every single person in this group, everyone has an information stone. Information stones can resonate with each other. It's a tool that allows communication within a 300-meter diameter. This is truly a dire situation. The other side has a large number of people and communication tools. If we leave things as they are, she will surely be caught. She'll definitely be captured. It sounds like she didn't do anything wrong. Why is everyone in the entire company chasing after her? When I asked her again about the key point, the elf woman actually said something shocking with an innocent expression. She actually cut off the other person's, his manhood. This now I totally understand why they won't let go of her. At that moment Owen suddenly said, "There are pursuers behind us, they've stuck to us. The distance is about 150 meters. Seems like she's not lying. This must be the sharp instinct that elves are born with," so I sped up with her. But the pursuer's distance still did to widen. In this situation, the pursuers will inform the group of our location, if this is dangerous, but at this moment my heart is still conflicted. If the target across from me were myself, I'd definitely eliminate them without a second thought. But this is about the female elf. If I get involved, I'll definitely be implicated in this mess later. I need to make a decision quickly. When I asked her what she was best at, she actually replied, "Laundry, cooking, cleaning." I was completely speechless because of this elf girl. Then, after realizing her mistake, she added that her best skills were archery and using fire magic. She's a classic archer. In addition to her precious fire attribute, her current combat abilities are helpful for my exploration of this maze. So I seriously asked her if she wanted to become my true partner. The term is until the end of this maze. The reward distribution is 9 for me, 1 for you. And I hadn't finished explaining my other conditions yet. This girl actually called out ahead of time. I agree. At this moment, the distance to the pursuers behind us was getting closer and closer. At that moment, I saw a cave entrance ahead, so I ordered Owen to cast a fire spell. When we entered the cave and extinguished the flames, we saw the relentless pursuers right behind us. And this is also the reason I came here. At this moment, Owen had already prepared his bow and arrow stance. He waited for the pursuer to enter his line of sight. Without hesitation, Owen shot the arrow. You could feel that Owen, who was nearby, was trembling all over. This must be because it was his first time killing someone. Then I stepped out of the darkness to check the body. But this tracker, in order to increase speed, didn't carry any backpack at all. All he had was an information stone. At this moment, the information stone was still transmitting a sound. When we hadn't responded for a long time, the other party noticed something was wrong. Finally, the information stone transmitted. The tracker has perished. Everyone who can hear my voice, I'll report to the Goblin region immediately. One moment a pure and innocent girl, the next a cold-blooded killer, and right now her bounty is as high as tens of thousands of gold coins. Not long ago, I stripped a tracker of their equipment from head to toe. Then I sorted through the items I collected one by one. I thought I might find something valuable, but there wasn't much. There was a heavy gem pouch, as well as 2 short swords and a crossbow. And this was the set of equipment the guy had worn before. At this moment, Owen had switched to new gear. Though it looked a bit loose overall, but it looks pretty good after putting on the belt. Maybe it's a change in outfit, but my demeanor has also changed. Now I look more like a proper, honorable warrior. Then I picked up the information stone, and while I was studying it, the voice of the guild leader came through again. The elf pursuing Sheldon has died. Her location is in the Goblin area. She's with a barbarian who wields a hammer and shield. They even raised the bounty to 10,000 gold coins. That's really a big move. Upon hearing this, Owen, who was initially stunned, immediately looked up at me with a worried expression. I gently reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll take her out of here." Under my determined gaze, she instantly became my fan. Because before that, when I killed the tracker, I had already decided to help her. The reason is simple. I simply like helping people in need. Then using her spark, we went to the second level of the maze. If we were active at the entrance to the second level, with the strength of the two of us, there shouldn't be much danger. Our coordination is very seamless. We have always been the best partners. While Owen was still worried about the unknowns on the second floor, capturing the elf would not only give us 10,000 gold coins, but the timing of this information is also quite good, so I don't have to convince her again. If you don't know the route, just keep heading north and you'll reach the entrance. But this is much later than I expected. There should have been a trap by now. Is there no place without light? I suddenly feel especially frustrated. Damn, I've been trapped in the dark from the very beginning. A vine confidently walked up to me. She skillfully dodged the attacks. Then, at point-blank range, she fired an arrow. She easily took out several goblins. Her skills were much better than I expected. Soon after, Irvine, having wiped out the goblins, looked at me triumphantly. "Well done. Watching you shoot, you really do look like an elf. Hearing this, Owen blushed with happiness. Then she extended her small hand, holding 2 trophies in it. It turned out she still remembered my request from earlier during the run. She said confidently, "Based on the current progress, maybe can also gain a fortune." After a period of silence during the journey, the information stone transmitted a message again. This time, it actually increased the bounty to 20,000 gold coins. In other words, there must be enemies within 300 meters. Perhaps it was an instinctive worry about a change in circumstances. Owen quietly approached me. Follow my unlucky fate. Something bad should be about to happen. But the silence instead makes me feel uneasy. It really is just as I expected. Owen suddenly pointed ahead and screamed. When she moved the flame forward, I saw that there was actually a group of zombies ahead. Rotten skin, empty, hollow eyes? These creatures in my memory should only exist in the south. Have we reached the vicinity of the warning line? Although we've been heading north, we end up going in circles whenever we hit a dead end. It's possible we've gone in the opposite direction. At this point, Owen was no longer smug like before. Instead, she hesitantly stood behind me. After I shared the general strategy with her, I slowly walked up. There are 3 zombies blocking the passage ahead. If it were like a game, these zombies would only attack if I got within a certain range. As I carefully took another step, the 3 zombies pounced on me simultaneously. Although they're stronger than goblins, they're still only 9th rank monsters. So eliminating them was more than enough. I have reliable companions. Then we leveled up while heading north. Unknowingly 3 days had passed, and then Owen discovered a dark red line drawn on the ground. It was blood, and it didn't look like a goblin's, and the blood trail extended exactly in the direction we were going. For some reason, I think I know who this blood belongs to. After following the blood trail a little further, I became even more certain of my thoughts. I couldn't help but swear. Damn it, right behind where I entered the maze was actually the entrance to the 2nd level. What the hell is this? If I had gone the other way, if I hadn't stepped into that trap, my luck is just terribly bad. This man shed a sleazy, greasy image, only to gain a knave and lovely elf. But this elf has a high bounty on her head, and to avoid our enemy's pursuit, we're forced to enter the 2nd layer of the maze. The moment we entered the 2nd floor gate together, my body suddenly plummeted from a great height. The feeling at that moment was like being repeatedly chewed by a frog in its mouth, and then being spit out in disgust. I then made a clumsy sound as I fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Owen quickly regained his balance and landed perfectly unharmed. I feel it again. This girl really has great physical fitness. This agility is something a barbarian like me could never possess. At the same time, we also heard the system notification indicating we had entered the 2nd floor. After looking around, I confirmed from memory that we are in the Goblin Forest located in the northern part of the 2nd floor. Behind us is the passageway to return to the 1st floor at any time. No life forms are visible around us for now. Each entrance on this level represents a different monster type. The north leads to the Goblin Forest. The east leads to the Beast's Lair. The west leads to the Zombie Camp. The south leads to Blackrock Mountain. And the way to return to the city from this maze is, after a second, the explorers will be expelled from the maze back to the city. Those who aren't very united in chasing us probably won't follow us to the 2nd floor. So I've decided to hold out on the 2nd floor until the end. I'll rush back just before the 1st floor ends, but I can't just sit here and wait for time to pass. So I decided to investigate the surroundings first. It might be because we're in the woods. Oh, nearby sight. It felt like returning to their elf territory. Even though she knew this area was goblin territory, she was still as happy as a child. At the same time, she was using her elf's keen perception to clear out goblin traps ahead of them. But something was a bit strange. Though there were traps here, no goblins had been found. What was different from the 1st floor was, in addition to the fixed traps, the goblins are usually just a dozen or so working together. There may even be mutated goblin archers mixed in. Of course, the closer we get to the perimeter, the more mutated species there will be. But we plan to operate near the entrance, so those mutated goblins won't be a threat to us for now. We expanded our area by throwing stones to trigger the traps. This is also to make it easier in case we need to escape quickly. When expanded to a certain range, Owen discovered the goblin group in advance. Under inquiring gaze, I decided to deal with the group of goblins. Then she slowly parted the bushes and moved toward the goblins. On a path covered with branches and vegetation, her footsteps made no sound at all. Once again, I marveled at the agility of elves. Soon after, Owen stopped in his tracks. She waved at me, then, my sim. She immediately drew her bow and aimed at the goblin. With the arrow shot as the starting point, I charged forward. The monsters on the 2nd floor were indeed different. First, there were 3 times as many as the 1st floor. There were also newly added goblin swordsmen among them. But surprisingly, I'm not scared at all. Instead, I feel an overwhelming excitement throughout my body. It must be the warrior's combative heartbeat that this body possesses. As I watch the goblins charge at me head-on, I swung my tightly gripped hammer and struck their solar plexus. A weakling, knocked away by my blow in an instant. Some goblins didn't even hit the ground before they vanished in a flash of light, but it's too early to celebrate. I've only just taken out the first few. Goblins are now swarming in from all directions. The instinctive sense of danger from behind is even stronger. It's a goblin swordsman. If I'd been even a moment later, it's possible that I could lose my head here. They don't even give me a chance to catch my breath. Normally 5 or more regular goblins are already a big threat. If I were alone, facing this group of monsters, I would have to be prepared to get injured in order to win. But it's different now. I have a great companion. An arrow shot from the grass pierced a goblin's forehead. It seems Owen has mastered JJ's good position. I quickly got back on my feet. Then, with my shield, I charged back into the heart of the enemy. It was time to end these monsters. Soon after facing the first group of goblins, we collected 11 rubies. This is more than the 44 we could gather in a whole day on the first floor. This is already a very satisfying result. The only regret is that the goblin sword and armor disappeared along with their deaths, but at the same time, it makes one look forward to how much one can gain after staying here for 4 days. Finally learned the legendary dragon subduing palm. Just not long ago, we centered around the entrance of the first floor. We expanded the exploration range to 3 kilometers. Meanwhile, we naturally encountered a goblin group. They appear in groups at 5-minute intervals. This group even included goblin archers. This species is indeed quite threatening. They even use invisibility magic. But as long as you concentrate, when it exposes its body, it can react to arrows flying towards it. Even barbarians, if their head is struck, they will die on the spot. So if I can make it back to the town, I must prioritize buying a helmet. Once we finished the battle again, I found an open space. I decided to recover Mike's power before exploring. When I asked her if she needed a nap first, this girl really didn't know what politeness was. When I put down the heavy package and handed her the blanket, in less than a minute I heard snoring. Compared to a barbarian, this sound was very delicate and dainty. She must be really tired, because she's never made a sound while sleeping. Maybe it's because she feels safer now than ever before. We've been hunting continuously for 15 hours. Although we faced more than 10 goblins each time, our skills have improved. The danger situations also decreased. The elimination speed also increased. As a result, many rewards were gained. But there were still moments of tension. As the radius expanded, encounters with explorers began to occur. These were teams made up of 3 or more people. Some of these teams also included different races. Whenever we meet, although it's customary to keep our distance and brush past each other, these experiences always leave me exhausted. Compared to goblins, I'm more afraid of these adventurers' attacks. Now there's even more reason to be cautious. That's because this girl's beauty is a big problem. I looked at Owen, who was fast asleep. I couldn't help but sigh. Although we had been camping out for a few days, her silver hair, captivating amber eyes, and features that met the men's standard, I really hoped this side of her wouldn't attract other male adventurers. Just as I muttered this to myself, she who was just snoring a moment ago opened her big eyes with a cheerful smile, excitedly asking back, "Am I really that pretty?" She who seemed to still be in a dream, after being coldly rejected by me, once again started snoring soundly. After we entered the goblin forest, the 4th, 5th, and 6th days quickly passed, and now it is already the final 7th day. We have finally reached the moment when we can leave the maze. There are 2 hours and 47 minutes left until the entrance closes. There is only one way to leave the maze and return to the town. That is to wait until the entrance is completely closed. Then at the designated time, the maze will expel all explorers from that floor back into the town. That is to say, the higher the level, the longer you'll spend in the maze. There are also several reasons why one might want to leave early. Once the allotted time on a level is up, the entrance will disappear. That is to say, under unknown circumstances, our escape route will also disappear, and our food supplies are dwindling. Although we could trade rubies with other explorers for food, that would add unnecessary complications. More importantly, Owen only has less than 10 arrows left. That leaves us vulnerable in any unforeseen combat. After that, we hunted for a while again. We confirmed the remaining time, and decided to start heading back to the entrance on the first floor. We were about 4 kilometers away from the entrance. When we were heading back, we unknowingly discovered a refreshed trap in the forest. That is to say, the goblin group we had previously defeated appeared again. At this moment, Owen, who was walking ahead, stopped. He spotted a group of goblins not far ahead. We didn't communicate much either. After not, I marked it. Then I charged straight ahead, heading towards the group of goblins to kill them. When I roared in the center of them, the goblins actually started to hesitate. It must have been because of the pressure from my presence. In the moment they paused, I quickly took out my hammer. First I struck the goblin swordsman, landing a fatal blow to his head. I could also feel that after going through countless battles, I had unknowingly mastered the key points of group combat. Moreover, with Owen's growing strength, the two archers in this group didn't even manage to fire a single arrow. It was killed early by Irving. This shortened the time it took to finish them off. Then, as we were about to pick up the loot and leave, Irving discovered something strange not far away. It was a small orb of light, about the size of a fist, floating in the air. Although this was my first time seeing it in person, I could tell it was the essence of a goblin. This is a rare treasure that adventurers can only dream of. Its abilities vary depending on the type. It can grant the user both passive and active skills. It even influences the essence of the character. This can determine the character's fate. Although each adventurer can only absorb one essence, it is still enough to make others take risks. And this just happens to be the essence of the Goblin Archer. Under Owen's greedy gaze, I also decided to give her this opportunity. At the same time, I had a bad feeling about this unexpected stroke of luck, a premonition of something bad. 'Cause up to now, I've only been accompanied by misfortune. Just when I thought my difficult life was starting to improve, the sound of uninvited guests came from the distance. This group of people shamelessly shouted with her. The essence of this is something they had anticipated. Let us quickly put down our things and leave here. This is a group of 4 human explorers. They spotted us from a distance. With serious expressions, they quickly closed the distance. And when I saw their arrival, instead my heart felt strangely pleased. It turns out the internationally recognized gesture works anywhere. It even applies to the in-game world. When everyone was about to use WQ, I threw her directly forward. During this process, she just happened to make contact with the goblin essence in the air. The essence emitted a brilliant light. Then it wrapped around Owen's body and slowly dissipated. Seeing their target absorbed, the 4 Lakemers started yelling at us. Facing them, I took a large step forward without the slightest nervousness. If you want to fight, bring it on. No matter how many there are, I will stay and fight. Although we are outnumbered, I show an even stronger will to fight. Because in this world, if you're underestimated, you'll be immediately devoured. Then under my strong attitude, these people actually chose to leave. After that, I asked, head to the first floor entrance as quickly as possible. Although it's unclear whether they'll follow us, what's certain is their destination is also the first floor entrance. Because they are a team of 4, with this level of strength, they would have no problem operating on the 3rd floor. Yet they are lingering at the entrance. They must be like us, planning return to town on the 7th day. Hearing this analysis, Owen had no further questions. He increased his speed and led the way. She must have noticed it too. Although there was no direct confrontation, but before safely leaving the maze, dangers ever present. Just then, Ivan noticed a group of goblins. When I planned to avoid them and head towards the exit, Ivan hurriedly said, this time the goblin group is charging directly at us. Since entering the 2nd floor, the goblins have never attacked us first. I quickly made a judgment. These must have been the people who intentionally lured the goblins earlier. Then they were lying in ambush in the opposite direction. They must have planned to weaken us with the goblins first, and then deal with us. Upon realizing this, I made a decision. I plan to eliminate these goblins first. Goblins Archer's Essence. Based on my understanding of the game, it should be an invisibility skill. This is a skill that can be activated through willpower without needing to be initiated. And I stayed behind, intending to face this group of goblins alone. Based on the current situation, there's really no better way. Under Owen's worried gaze, I instructed, I'll signal her later. Make sure you kill the enemy archers with 1 shot when the time comes. Don't reveal your stealth until then. Then while Owen was completely bewildered, I ran straight back. Not long after I saw the pursuing goblins. I still don't know where those bastards are hiding. Since they fired that sneaky arrow, they haven't shown themselves. They're probably waiting until we've finished off the goblins before appearing. Maybe that was their plan all along. There are about a dozen goblins in front of us. 2 of them look like swordsmen. No arrows have flown yet, which means the goblin archers are also hiding. The current situation is, I have to avoid the goblin archers, and stay wary of those human archers. I even need to deal with this group of scoundrels in front of me. When I blocked the arrows with my shield, the goblin sword wielder behind me seized the opportunity, and stabbed at my back. Without Owen's help, I have to face these guys alone. Injuries to the body are an unavoidable situation. Although the number of goblins is decreasing, the accumulated injuries keep increasing. Just when I finally managed to catch my breath, 2 arrows shot towards me at the same time, and they came from 2 different directions. One was from a goblin, the other from that group of Etchi's handiwork. It is impossible to block 2 arrows at the same time, so I chose to block the arrow coming from the side with my shield. The sound was completely different from that of the goblin archers. When I blocked the fire-type arrow with my shield, an arrow from behind deeply pierced my left arm. I took a hit and my left arm instantly became immobile, because the arrow had actually struck my elbow, and it was also coated with a potent poison. Right now I can only use my right arm. If I must choose between a hammer and a shield, I would choose the shield without hesitation, because the real enemy now is that group of Eds, not these goblins before me. Although I can easily destroy these goblins with a hammer, I can defend against hidden attacks. When there are only 3 goblins left, these monsters also felt my terror, and surprisingly didn't resist desperately. Instead they chose to flee. Although they were covered in wounds, they achieved victory in the first round. At the same time, accompanied by sounds of praise, this group of Ed also revealed themselves from the hidden woods. Only 3 appeared. That means the enemy archers are still hiding in the shadows. I don't know if Owen has found this person yet. As for their appearance, I didn't show any panic. Instead, I looked at them with cold eyes. My left arm still hurts when I move it, but it's time to signal Owen. To make the world notice it as a signal, it has to be a unique gesture. And that is the internationally recognized gesture of friendship. This was clearly an impossible enemy to defeat, but we miraculously won. Because in this world, the barbarian and the elven woman, who should never be together, united their hearts. He actually cast the magic of love. Not long ago, the red-haired man across from me exchanged glances with his companions, then took a big step forward and said to me that he would first tame me before trying to ask about Owen's whereabouts. He even planned to treat me as a major boss in the game. At that moment, I slowly raised my left hand and gently extended my middle finger. I gave them a standard international gesture. It should be a unique gesture that anyone living in any world would recognize. And with that gesture, I immediately startled the group in front of me. I could see the confusion in their eyes, but this gesture didn't bring any change, because they didn't see Owen's bow and arrow. Could it be because the distance was too far for her to see? But I couldn't care less. I immediately used it. I prioritized charging towards the red-haired man ahead, and the red-haired man I aimed at. Instead, I retreated while hurriedly calling out another person's name. Then a male lead wearing a straw hat stepped forward and blocked my attack. This person's strength was truly formidable. He should be the strongest one in this group. No matter how strong he is, I can't back down. I have to disperse them, so Owen has a chance for a one-hit kill. Just as I thought of this, an arrow suddenly shot towards us. Everyone present was startled. No wonder this kid has been standing still all along. Then the kid shouted loudly, "Let the others focus on defeating me. I'll step in to block the arrows." So this group of I had already made detailed plans in advance, and at that moment, the red-haired man behind me cunningly swung his sword and aimed at my injured left arm. Fortunately, I reacted in time and the wound wasn't too deep, but my left arm is already unusable. I directly gave up defending with my left arm and charged straight at the red-haired man ahead. This is a good trade. At the same time, I struggled to push the straw hat warrior aside with my shield. Just then, another support arrow shot towards me. I don't know if Owen changed his position, but this time the force was noticeably much stronger. It also carried the property of fire magic. At the same time, the shield bearer couldn't withstand the flames. He could only throw the shield in his hand. The moment the annoying shield disappeared, Owen didn't hesitate to shoot another arrow, and this time, he finally hit the shield man's shoulder accurately. With the injury, he could only drop his sword from his right hand to the ground. Now that both of his hands were empty, this kid without a view became useless. Only when the battle in front of me turned against my side did the red-haired man finally react. He ordered the straw hat warrior to block me, then ran toward the jungle. It seems he plans to search for Owen. I too was entangled with the person in front of me, and at this moment, I could only trust Owen's abilities. When I struck the straw hat warrior with my shield, he actually didn't decide to resist, but instead avoided my attack. I followed up on the momentum and directly targeted the shielded man behind. One strike and I shattered his skull. Now only the straw hat warrior remains. From our few encounters, I can feel that the straw hat warrior's strength is formidable. I really don't know why he's hanging out with these insects, but this will also be the biggest mistake of his life. When I attack with my shield, the straw hat swordsman who was familiar with my moves distanced himself from me, and this was all part of my plan. I took the opportunity to drop my shield and immediately reached out with my right hand to grab him. The straw hat swordsman who was caught by the collar instantly showed a look of confusion. This was likely a scenario he hadn't anticipated. With my powerful right hand, I pulled him back. Then using my mouth in place of my immobile left arm, I viciously tore open the warrior's throat. The warrior didn't even have time to scream. He just left this world. The battle here was just over, and Owen appeared breathlessly from the bushes. I spat the meat out of my mouth onto the ground. He wiped his mouth with his arm. At this moment, Owen appeared unharmed. He must have successfully dealt with the red-haired man. The battle was finally over. Although it was a victory, the cost was high. Owen, who was anxiously standing aside, looked at the heavily injured man with tear-filled eyes. He took out a potion from his waist and handed it to me. I didn't say much in response. I simply took the potion and swallowed it in one gulp. Not long after, I could feel something boiling inside me. At the same time, every vein hurt, and my skin started to itch all over. It was the feeling of almost going insane. Thankfully, that feeling quickly disappeared. Then I asked what time it was. There was less than 40 minutes until the level 1 entrance closed. I didn't have time to worry about that. I shouted, "Owen, quickly take off your clothes." But I don't know how this girl understood it. She actually started taking off her own clothes, blushing. And I, with a speechless expression, wasn't asking her but to hurry up and strip off the gear of these underground agents. After finishing these tasks, only about 30 minutes were left. From this moment on, we had no choice but to force ourselves into a marathon. After some time passed, the entrance to the first floor slowly appeared before our eyes. When there were less than 40 seconds left, we both successfully entered the entrance on the first floor. Similarly, I was still sitting on the ground in a wolf-fox posture, while Owen, standing nearby, was completely unharmed. At this moment, Owen was as happy as a child, shouting, "This is really fun." He was so excited. Then I relaxed my aching body and stood up from my seat. Less than 10 seconds remained. We just looked at each other. I intended to say goodbye like this, but I suddenly remembered that I hadn't divided the spoils yet. A place name quickly came to my mind, and I hurriedly called out to Owen. "Black Whale. We'll meet at the Blackwell bar after we go out." And as the sound fades away, the scene before us suddenly transforms into a sea of light. At the same time, we hear the system's voice. Closed labyrinth. The character is heading to the town of Labdonia. It's the middle of the night. You brought a young woman to this kind of bar. What's your purpose? Just a short while ago, after I teleported out of the secret realm, when my vision returned, I unconsciously stared blankly at the sky. Such bright light. It's been so long since I've seen it, but before I could feel the warmth, the noise around me shattered my tranquility. Even made me wonder if I had been transported to somewhere else. But after hearing their conversation, I gradually came to believe that this was a city outside the labyrinth, because all the adventurers who entered the labyrinth had gathered here. I really didn't expect this. I can't believe there are so many adventurers inside the lair. Then I set the clock to 12 o'clock. Because the time in the maze is different from the time in the city. In the maze, no matter how long you spend, according to the city's time, it's only one day. So as long as you exit the maze, time will freeze at 12 noon the next day. By the time I finished all this, I suddenly heard a familiar call, that goofy-looking bold voice. I have an impression of this person, but I couldn't remember his name. It was only when he introduced himself that I recalled. His name is Karak, the third son of Payan. In this world, all barbarian names must be preceded by their father's name. And then I added the number of children and their names. I haven't even spoken a few words to him yet. Barbarian warriors appeared one after another from nowhere. It was like a class reunion. Ignoring the crowd around them, in extremely loud voices, they kept shouting long names, greeting each other. They were still complimenting each other's equipment. They really are amazing. They don't seem very quick-witted. Yet they memorized such long names so well. At that moment I heard Karak's voice. He said they were going to exchange gold coins. He asked if I wanted to go with them. Then I cleared my throat. I tried to answer as loudly as I could. "I want to go too." The reply I heard was, I looked really tired, and that my voice lacked strength. I always thought that I played the barbarian perfectly, but his work. In an instant I lost my confidence. Then under Karak's lead, we headed to the inspection station together. It seems like this is a necessary process that the barbarians must go through in order to claim their rewards from the maze. At this moment, Karak, who was leading the way, was also shouting that he wanted to prove his bravery as a warrior. This is like the checkout counter in a supermarket. A group of people are gathered here waiting to check out, especially the lady sitting at the front desk. Her hand speed is almost mechanical. She quickly converts the gold coins. Karak's combat power is indeed impressive. While the other warriors only exchanged a little over 20,000 gold coins, he managed to exchange over 40,000 gold coins. Immediately, the other barbarian warriors nearby gathered around us, praising him as the Nightbringer among warriors. At that moment, I also slowly walked to the front and took out the 3 prepared storage bags. With the fast hands of the lady at the front desk, the results of my achievements soon came in. A total of 182,413 gold coins. When this number echoed through the arena, these barbaric warriors instantly surrounded me in the center, cause 180,000 was their highest record ever. Then I'm not sure who noticed first, but they saw that I still had my warhammer, battle boots, shoulder guards, and so on. These were the achievements they envied. I can understand their enthusiastic reaction, because I entered the maze naked. But when I came out, I had evolved into a civilized barbarian. I should be the first. And in their excessive praise, my body actually started to get excited. I'm the greatest warrior. With my shout, the barbarian warriors instantly fell into a wild whirlpool of madness. With their simple minds, their enthusiasm comes quickly and fades just as fast. Soon we were all sitting in the center of the square. There might be other rookie processes I don't know about. So here I am, waiting with everyone else for the other barbarians. At this moment I saw Irving surrounded by a group of handsome men and beautiful women, excitedly chatting about something. This scene is truly enviable, because all I have around me are these burly, barbaric men. At this moment, Owen also secretly looked at me. When our eyes met, I seized the opportunity and mouthed to Owen, "See you tonight?" I'm not sure if he understood my words. The girl's face immediately flushed. He responded in the same way with his lips. At that moment, the female elf beside Owen and Karak beside me simultaneously exclaimed, "Do you two know each other?" When I said we didn't, Karak unexpectedly shouted loudly, "As the strongest warrior, how could you possibly know those despicable elves?" At this moment, I really wanted to shut this guy up, but it was too late, because the noise was too loud. The surrounding elves immediately glared at us with fierce eyes. I really feel like these simple-minded guys are driving me crazy. Just at this critical moment, the last few barbarian warriors also, I exchanged the coins and walked out. Anyway, staying here any longer probably wouldn't get me a chance to speak with Owen, so I decided to lead this group and leave first. When we had walked a certain distance, we unexpectedly saw a heartbreaking scene. Although I had played this game countless times, I never expected this. Such emotions also exist in the real game world. The joy of an explorer's family or friends, and the sorrow of losing a loved one. When I truly scenes that cannot be seen through the display screen, my mood becomes incredibly heavy. The scene shifts, and I stand there staring at these crazy guys. I'm just afraid there are still unknown newbie missions, but I never expect the next stop would actually be a bar, and it's starting in broad daylight. It's going to be a non-stop drinking spree. Staying with them any longer is a waste of my time. So I suddenly stood up and declared that I had somewhere to go and planned to leave, although they looked at me in surprise and shouted loudly, saying things like, "You're the protagonist, you can't leave." But under my stubbornness, they could only watch helplessly as I left. After parting ways with them, I wandered aimlessly through the city, though I had a destination in mind. But right now I feel like I just want to keep walking. The scenery here feels incredibly peaceful. The first time I saw this city was at midnight, but now it's daytime and the streets are crowded with people. There are no monsters here, and no one would hurt me. There's even law and order here. If it were here, even if I fell asleep on the road, I would still be safe. Or even before that, someone might have already reached out to help. Of course, I also know that it's far behind compared to Earth in the 21st century. But even so, it's still very peaceful. Maybe living in this city would also be a good decision. Lost in my own thoughts, I only drifted off to sleep. When I opened my eyes again, it was already past 9 p.m. I exited the maze around noon, so I probably slept for 4 to 5 hours. I headed to the whale bar where I had a date with Owen. I finally found the bar after asking around. It looked completely different from what I saw in the game. When I pushed open the door and entered, what met my eyes was messy. Just then I heard excited shouts. Owen had arrived here early, but sitting beside her was another female elf I had never seen before sitting next to her. In Owen's introduction, I learned that she was actually her own older sister, but this female elf, ever since she saw me, has been staring at me with the eyes of a criminal, making me very uncomfortable. When I asked her what her purpose was in coming here, she angrily pointed at me and said, "In the middle of the night, you bring Owen to this kind of bar? What's your purpose?" "Stop talking nonsense. Can you imagine?" Such a charming elf woman actually said to me, "How about we go to your room?" Just a short while ago, when I walked in the messy bar, I heard a familiar voice. The call came from a corner of the room. When I looked in that direction, there was another female elf who looked extremely similar to Owen. Later I learned during introductions that she was his older sister. No wonder she resembled Owen so much. As I was observing this female elf, she was also sizing me up with a cold stare. The awkward silence didn't last long. The female elf named Trucia asked me in an accusing tone, "Last night, you brought Owen to this chaotic bar, and you didn't even show up yourself. She was made to wait here all night for someone. This is an incomprehensible issue. But judging by her expression, it doesn't seem like a joke." When I snapped back to reality, I asked Owen, after coming out of the maze, how many hours had passed. The answer I got was that 30 hours had passed. Insane, not 4 hours, but 30 hours. No wonder my whole body feels so sore. It turns out I had slept for an entire day. Then I didn't argue much. I directly apologized to Owen sincerely, but for my apology, these two sisters showed a surprisingly surprised expression. It was as if they were seeing a barbarian apologize for the first time. Then Trucia raised the issue again. The reason for meeting Owen, Actually, I could give many reasons, but I don't want to tell her. I'll just tell her bluntly. I don't want to tell her the reason. If she's really curious, let her ask Owen herself later. Actually, what I mean is, don't stand here and be an eyesore. It means she wants me to leave quickly. Fortunately, she understood my meaning, because her angry expression proved everything. Then Trusha suddenly placed a storage bag on the table. Inside it were 350,000 gold coins. It was the value of the essence Owen absorbed from the goblin. It turns out she meant for me to take the gold and leave. This is just like a famous scene I've seen in a TV drama. After I composed myself, I posed the question to Owen. My reward for letting Owen have the essence was hoping she would help me get the essence I wanted. If allowed, I'd like to continue teaming up with her in the future. The spoils can be split 50-50. In simple, she wants to form a team with her. When he heard this, Owen's eyes immediately sparkled with excitement, but soon his expression dimmed. In her apologetic gaze, he heard Trusha's voice from beside them. Turns out that the elves have, there's a tradition that the first exploration of the rite must be done alone. But after that, I have to explore the maze with my older sister. This is an unexpected result, but I made a quick decision. Although she's a partner I get along with very well, there's no reason I have to stick with her. If that's the case, then I need to calculate carefully. With the Regia's confirmation, 350,000 gold is half of the market price of the essence. According to the original agreement of a 9-1 ratio, you still owe me 280,000 gold. Before I could finish speaking, the annoying female elf said with a sly look in her eyes, I almost forgot about this. She then took out another pouch, which happened to contain exactly 280,000 gold. I almost became the unsuspecting fool. The despicable female elf. Then with a grim expression, I had something to say to Owen. I told her to finish her business and get out quickly. At the same time, Owen also looked at her sister with a longing gaze. As for the always obedient younger sister's actions, it seemed to have exceeded her expectation. She then sighed. Suddenly she pointed at me. She actually made me swear that I wouldn't sleep with Owen. I thought I had heard wrong. She only said not to let us sleep together. Does that mean physical contact is allowed? What a self-important little elf. Then without hesitation, I swore an oath in the name of a warrior. I never cared about a warrior's honor after crossing over to this world. And when Trusha heard my oath, she thanked me sincerely before leaving for saving Owen's life. Then he strolled out of the bar. With the sound of the bar door closing, Owen slumped onto the table, because in all his life, he had never talked back to his sister. But judging by Trusha's smile as she left, she probably wasn't angry with my comfort. This little girl is starting to lift her head again. She also takes out over 60,000 gold coins from her pocket. This is the property of the archers and the red-haired man who attacked us. As for their other equipment, because there was too much, she left it in her dorm. She plans to bring it to me next time. She's definitely been around me for a while. This girl knows exactly what I want. Although I cleanly and neatly gave her up, I really feel a little reluctant. Then she suddenly spoke cautiously, asking how she should repay me. So she was still thinking about it. She remembered her vow to repay her life-saving grace. That's the reason. That's why her sister made me swear an oath. She must be afraid I'll make excessive demands. For now, I haven't thought of any other requests. After sleeping the whole day, my stomach keeps growling. When I asked her what she wanted to eat, she hesitated for a moment, and surprisingly said she wanted to drink. Turns out, she purposely didn't drink a drop at yesterday's celebration, so she could have the first drink with me. Return to the wine. This kind of culture really exists in the game. For those of a different race who grew up in the Holy Land until adulthood, the first celebratory wine for a safe return holds great significance. Then the girl added, we are beings who shared hardships in the labyrinth, so you must drink with me. But she didn't know. This is my first time too. Apparently, when I said I was also 20 in the maze, she just took it as a joke. No wonder she kept calling me uncle. Actually, I'm just like her. I just became a warrior, and this is my first time entering the maze too. Soon after, a large table of delicious food was finally served. We drank and ate, chatting about many things, because for most of the time in the maze, we only spoke when necessary. This kind of private conversation was also a first. It seems this girl's alcohol tolerance is just so-so. She just had one drink, and kept staring at me with a captivating gaze. She even murmured to herself, Uncle looks really handsome today. Uncle is really good at drinking. Seeing her with such a seductive look, I also thought of a way to repay her, but my request is difficult to fulfill here, because the city guards will catch us very soon. The little girl who heard this immediately blushed. Then with a seductive expression, she said, how about we go to your room, mister? This elf girl actually volunteered to go to my hotel room, but what she never expected was, I can't believe I did such a thing to her. Just a short while ago, we barely escaped with our lives in the maze. With food and wine accompanying us, we had our first deep conversation. At this moment, the little girl, who had already drunk a few rounds, was tipsy. Her gaze was incredibly captivating. Then I made up my mind. After drinking the wine in the cup in one go, her integrity and courage compelled her. Let's move to another place to continue our conversation. Upon hearing this, the little girl blushed instantly. She actually took the initiative to suggest going to my private dorm room. At this moment, I was carefully studying Owen's body. Of course, the vow I made with her sister had not been broken. Although the vows in this world mean nothing to me, I'm not on the same wavelength as this little girl. Owen, spread your legs a little more. Right now, I'm forcing her to do stretches. She keeps screaming in agony from the torment. And the sound were so... They had the man in the next room in complete turmoil. The moment I released the little girl's arm, she was like reborn, immediately curling up to the side, afraid I would bother her again. Under my careful observation, I found that she, having absorbed the goblin essence, had increased her flexibility by 4 points. But seeing her uncomfortable expression, the improved attribute wasn't noticeably reflected in her physical body. The little girl, having learned my true purpose, muttered with a disappointed expression. So I was brought to the hotel to have my abilities checked. Looking at her dejected expression, it seemed her little head had expected something else. If we used our abilities within the city, we'd certainly be quickly apprehended by patrol personnel. Therefore, we can only conduct the examination in a secluded area. Dungeon and Stone is a very unfriendly game. It's not hard to see this from the character's attribute interface, as ping. But in the game interface, just click the plus button, strength. For example, a character's physical stats are fixed. If its stats are increased in X muscles, then the carrying weight increases accordingly. At the same time, physical attack power will also increase. This means that depending on the details, the things each character can do will be completely different. As someone who hasn't eaten or drunk and has played games for 9 years, I'm still confused about some of the detailed attributes. For example, the Goblin Archer Essence I acquired this time, which has an attribute panel with persistence 7. As for this attribute, aside from knowing it belongs to the mental category, its other effects remain a mystery. The only change in the little girl who absorbed the obsession attribute after leaving the maze was that she started liking biscuits. While I was still immersed in these details, the little girl gently tugged at the corner of my shirt. Her sleepy little eyes had reached a certain level of drowsiness. There are still many details I want to confirm, but seeing her condition, that's all for today. Then I blew out the candles and lay down on the bed. The girl showed no discomfort at all. She simply leaned against my chest and fell asleep. Although I remembered my sister saying not to sleep together, it certainly wasn't meant like this. Amidst these wild thoughts, I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Owen and I sat side by side on the bed, excitedly observing the neatly arranged gear on the floor. These were the spoils of our maze adventure. Then, after sorting out what we truly needed, we spent the entire morning with the remaining gear. We sold them to various merchants at high prices. When we sold the last piece of equipment, we surprisingly had a huge sum of 1.45 million gold coins. Excluding Owen's 50,000 gold coins, my personal earnings were 1.4 million. For explorers entering the maze for the first time, this is an unbelievable amount. After we finished dividing the money, I decided to take her to the central square before we parted ways. We walked all the way to the fork in the road at Central Square. It was different from when we passed by earlier. Now the crowd here was in an uproar, approaching with a sense of confusion. I then realized the soldiers were carrying out sex, and these criminals were not murderers, robbers, or violent offenders committing arson. Their only crime was failure to pay taxes. In other words, because they had no money. With the soldiers' shouts, the man's head on the guillotine fell instantly into the wooden bucket below, but the crowd nearby actually rushed towards the bucket with the bread they had brought. What's even more shocking is that they soaked the bread in blood and devoured it ravenously. In the face of this sudden bleeding incident, Irvin, terrified, started to panic. The scene before him was even more shocking than the decapitation, and the reason these people were so frantic was simply due to a superstition. Drink the blood of the executioner from the guillotine. Your wealth will rise. Because Owen and I are both foreigners. The annual tax is 700,000 gold coins. Although it's slightly different from the game, there's nothing we can do. The tax will increase every year thereafter. So now is the time to invest in ourselves, because aside from waiving the handling fees, the first year with its lower taxes is the period of fastest growth. If you stay too comfortably, you might never return to reality. The blood they consume could end up being mine. If I don't want that to happen, I need to save money like crazy. At the very least, I have to become an adventurer who can move freely on the 6th floor of the labyrinth. In order to survive in this world without being executed, I need to learn everything about this world. So after breaking up with Owen, I came straight to the library. It was filled with the scent of paper and ink, and even the silent atmosphere that made one hold back a cough. But in this very environment, I ended up meeting another barbarian tribe. She's Anna Pyle's second daughter. She sleeps so soundly in this environment, truly worthy of being the barbarian's first female warrior. When I poked her back, she woke with a start. Ignoring the quiet of the library, she shouted my name loudly. And there were other members of her tribe in the library. It excited her even more inside. Then, perhaps sensing people's gaze, Anna lowered her voice. The reason she came to the library was actually because of a suggestion I made. Before entering the maze, when she was leading the barbarians and got lost, I had given her some advice. Think carefully before taking action. This then also made him realize that knowledge is necessary before thinking about problems. Quite an impressive thought. If she weren't just flipping through books and snoring away, she actually has a strong sense of awareness. But her actions are already much stronger than those of other barbarian tribes. Moreover, from her description, you can sense it was her first maze adventure. It seems she's also suffered quite a few setbacks. While other barbarians only knew how to boast about how easily they could kill monsters, she decided to come here to learn. Then she said, after coming here she realized that she didn't recognize many of the characters. She unknowingly fell asleep. After saying this, Anna immediately stood up and went to the Holy Land to learn the writing from the elders. What a truly sorrowful race, the more you understand them. You will forget the decisions made now. As Anna walked toward the exit, it seemed she remembered something. She turned back and said to me, if I survive the labyrinth this time, I will repay the advice you gave me back then. And if you need help, go to the Angry Horned Bull Inn to find her. And I really hope that within a day or two, she doesn't forget today's appointment, because I should be asking for her help very soon. After Anna left, I browsed the library for a while. It's a super huge library. It shouldn't be like the 21st century here. I can find the location through my computer. Just as I was worrying about how to find the book I wanted, I saw a library guy who was taking a nap, and she woke up with my cop. She slowly opened her eyes. The next second, I immediately found the unrestrained and wild female warrior, and the wild female warrior will become my next overnight partner. Not long after Anna left, I walked around the library for a while. It's an incredibly vast library. Here, unlike in the 21st century, you can't just find the location through a computer. Just as I was struggling to figure out how to find the book I wanted, I saw a librarian who was working at the desk. She also noticed me when I coughed. I slowly opened my eye, but I hadn't said what book I was looking for yet. I was still feeling drowsy from before. Suddenly she cast a spell. At the same time, a faint light seeped into my body. As I cautiously tried to avoid it, I heard her lazy voice. She casually said, from now on I can move freely. Arrived at the relevant area, the books I want to see will automatically appear. After saying these things, this booklet began to doze off. Later, while wandering around the library following the instructions, I also understood the meaning of what she said about finding books. With keywords in my mind, my gaze would automatically find the relevant books. No wonder such a large library. Only one book. Turns out there is such convenient magic. I then picked the book that attracted me the most from the bookshelf. The first book, The World of Destruction. This is a nearly 1,000-page book that tells the early history of this world view. It describes a world that, after thousands of years, was cursed by a witch. Therefore, in order for humanity to survive, they could only cling to life in the final fortress. At that time, the royal family, in order to open up more resources, forcefully opened a passage to another layer. This passage is now the labyrinth. The second book. This book tells the story of how the magic stones on monsters go through a process to become bread, water, steel, and so on. Although I can't understand the principles behind it, I still force myself to embed this knowledge into my mind. The third book, Asterisk, The Battle for the Sacred Relics, Asterisk. Through this book, I also learned why the barbarians and elves had a great war in the past. And this fourth book is of great significance to me right now. In this world, the so-called evil spirits, it refers to an evil presence that seizes others' bodies from another dimension. Although it doesn't explain why evil spirits appear, we can understand the efforts the royal family and the temple made to eliminate them. In summary, after reading this book, I understand that if I don't speak the world's taboo language, I won't be suspected of being an evil spirit. Referred to as the death of the world. His time of death was 150 years ago. In other words, the current world is 150 years after the game timeline. No wonder the knowledge I know from the game often gets things wrong. The last book was Dimensional Instability Observation Records. This is what my blonde-haired man said back then. When the entrance to the labyrinth closed, we entered. There may be an inference of instability. It turns out that I entered at the moment the maze was closed. I fell into the dark zone. When I looked up after seeing this, the sky had already turned black. Today is the third day since leaving the maze. A month in this world is 30 days. So in 27 days, the next maze will open again. Okay. But I thought I had just fallen asleep when the sudden knocking on the door interrupted my sleep. It turned out it was already the next morning. At this moment, Owen was excitedly knocking on the door. The moment I opened the door, a strong blue light enveloped my entire body. It turns out this girl had contracted a new essence, and it's a wind attribute that complements the fire attribute. The problem is she still doesn't know how to control it. She's in a flash. My room was completely messed up by her, and what surprised me was, in just 10 minutes, the room became spotless. What she told me in the maze last time, if you're good at doing laundry and cleaning, it turns out to be true. After we sat down again, I first congratulated her on gaining new insights, then my straightforward personality prompted me to ask her directly, for something so small, was it really necessary to take the time to come here, to prepare for the next maze? It would be best to spend time more meaningfully. But before I finished speaking, the girl's face instantly became extremely despondent. She said aggrievedly, although what I said was right, but she couldn't control herself. She wanted to tell me about this joy at the first moment. Because I am her first partner, does this girl have some strange fantasies about me? But in order to maintain a longer-lasting partnership with her, I put on the demeanor of a seasoned salesperson and turned the topic around. I will be staying at this hotel indefinitely, so if you have any questions in the future, feel free to come and consult me without hesitation. We may not be able to collaborate on the next maze, but it's still worth maintaining my friendship with her. When I finally said with certainty, because we're comrades who have shared life and death, the girl's face instantly brightened. After parting ways with Owen, to improve my personal strength in the shortest time, I came to the Angry Horned Bull Inn that Anna had mentioned before. What surprised me here was barbarians everywhere, so the lodging here only costs 300 gold coins a day, and it's a room with 5 beds for 10 warriors to share. They even rotate shifts to save gold coin. They've scheduled it to take turns. And when I learned this, I also met the person I came here to see, Anna Pyle's third daughter. When she asked why I was looking for her, I was like a straightforward barbarian warrior, and bluntly said to her, I want to fight you, because right now I need combat training. Although in the maze, I've achieved more than any barbarian, but in terms of combat skills, I'm no match for these warriors. Following Anna's cheerful agreement, we arrived at the training ground. The other barbarians who were still sparring all came over to watch us. Although I came to learn, I didn't want to lose too badly, but the barbarians who had just cheered me as the strongest warrior immediately shouted excitedly, now Anna's the greatest warrior in history, because she went from being hit to losing her shield in less than 3 minutes. Her fighting skills are truly powerful. From this moment on, under my constant challenges, I was dazed several more times, and she's smart unlike ordinary barbarians. Anna's a strong warrior, and with her clan's protection she won't betray me. So I made the best choice at this moment. Anna, would you be willing to be my partner? But the split will be 8-2, because I'm covering all the team formation costs. But before I finished speaking, she suddenly interrupted me. When I thought that the ratio made her unhappy, I hurriedly explained that I would cover many of the expenses. Anna generously took my right hand, and straightforwardly said, she doesn't understand any of these ratios, but she trusts Bjorn Yandel. Only then did I feel relieved. I finally found a trustworthy overnight companion. The next day, the barbarian tribe's sacred grounds. The chief was already here, waiting for our arrival. I still vividly remember how decisively he killed the evil spirit. That's why I don't like coming here. But for the soul engraving, to be more precise, the art of immortality, I had no choice but to grit my teeth and come here. Because this is the seal technique that must be obtained the next time they enter the labyrinth. It is a technique they must acquire. They are clearly the most cunning elves in this world. Yet at this moment, they are being enslaved by mindless barbarians. The ones being enslaved are even 2 elf sisters. The different races in this world possess various unique attributes. Elves obtain the essence of souls through contracts. Dwarves increase their forging rate through blessings of luck. Druids and spirit beasts form contracts to enhance their combat strength. Barbarian warriors can increase their soul imprint, and the necromancy I just requested is one of the soul imprints of the barbarian. But as soon as I finished speaking, the tribal chieftain who had been smiling moments ago suddenly stared at me with a murderous gaze, because what I said is not something a young warrior would know. His look right now is exactly like when slaying evil spirits during the ritual. This tribal chief is really a terminal case of paranoia, but to deal with this kind of patient, I had a plan before I came. Immediately I explained, I saw in the book, during the struggle for the elf's sacred object, the soul imprint was a great help, but before I could finish, the tribe chief's boisterous laughter interrupted me. They actually went to the library. How interesting. Including Anna, your generation has produced 2 remarkable individuals. One can sense from his compliments, his enthusiasm for the young generation of the barbarian tribes filled with a thirst for learning. He then added seriously, if the warriors need it, the barbarians have no reason to refuse soul imprinting, but there is one major issue. That is, the cost of soul imprinting is as high as 800,000 gold coins. Soul imprinting often requires many expensive medicinal materials. Even for high-level imprinting, it not only requires a large sum of gold, but also the corresponding herbs are needed, otherwise imprinting is impossible. For me who was already prepared, this money was already ready. Then, under their surprised expressions, I directly took out a heavy bag of gold coins. At the same time, to dispel their doubts, I adapted the story with Owen and told a new version of it. When I entered the first layer of the maze, I was fortunate to meet the already injured elf. Then in the secret realm, I treated her like a slave. Along the way I also collected meaningless essence. As payment I extorted a large sum of gold from the elf's sister. You are the first to be able to outsmart the despicable elf. Well done, Bjorn, son of Yandel. Surprisingly, these stories of mine were quite satisfying to them. Not only the chieftain beside me, but even other tribe members from afar came my side with excited smiles. The chieftains still laughing at this moment. Instead, they returned 200,000 gold coins to me. They also said it was a gift for the great little warrior. I actually earned 200,000 gold coins with his story. Our tribe's leader is truly a good person. Then I also shouted with sincerity, I will work harder in the future and make these elves look bad. Is this what they mean by becoming more attractive the more you look? I feel like I'm gradually starting to like this race. Soul imprinting is a form of enhancement magic. Its principle is to inject the mana from magical materials into the body and grant special powers. This allows even adult barbarians to see the soul circuits. During the pure and untainted baby years, the tattooing is done in advance. This is also why all barbarians are obsessed with tattoos. Besides this, to become a powerful defensive warrior, this immortality technique is a necessary path. When I thought I could easily obtain the imprint, but the pain at this moment made me voluntarily scream in agony. I actually have to regularly endure this pain. What an unpleasant place. I successfully absorbed the soul imprint. I urgently arrived at the merchant. During my sparring session with Anna, I observed that the hammer type go I had been using was not suitable for me. In addition, with the acquisition of the undying skill, what was more suitable for me at this moment was an enhanced shield and a Morajol Elu. In the end, I spent 220,000 gold to purchase a one-handed Gulu. Additionally, I couldn't find a suitable helmet for my head, so I spent 170,000 gold coins to customize one, plus 360,000 gold coins for the armor. Currently, I only have about 50,000 gold coins left. Since leaving the labyrinth last time, a considerable amount of time has passed unknowingly. Meanwhile, my daily schedule has long since become fixed. I wake up around 7 a.m. and have breakfast with Owen, go to the library to study until 4 p.m., then around 5 p.m. go to the Angry Bullhorn Inn for sparring. Starting from the 7th day of training, I also began sparring with other barbarian warriors. Although it wasn't the training method I expected within the system, fighting based on instinct and intuition also gave me a lot of help. Through continuous practice and persistence, I can occasionally defeat Anna. Although Anna has decent skills, her attack patterns are too predictable. I've suggested changes before, but since she's used to it, it's hard for her to change in the short term. After our practice, we returned to the hotel. By the time I finished my shower, it was around 9 p.m. Owen will be here on time then. He'll have a late-night snack with me. Although I also wanted to tell her, for just one meal, it's not necessary to travel back and forth for several hours. But every time I see her bright smile, I still held back from saying it. We usually finish our late-night snack around 11 p.m. After repeated trials, only 2 hours remain until the next maze. At this moment, Anna and I arrived at the agreed location early. This is the Explorers Guild. If we want to be assigned to the same area during entry, we must form a team and get approval in advance. According to Glay's instructions, we placed both of our hands on the crystal ball. It emitted a faint blue light. At the same time I heard, Level 9 Explorer, the fee is 15,000 gold coins. If you don't save on living expenses, you almost won't be able to cover this fee. Although it was hard to accept, I still obediently took out the fee, because when entering the maze, landing spots are usually random. But having accepted this magic beforehand, I can at least start my adventure in the same place. After leaving the Explorers Guild, we came to a nearby high-class restaurant. In my conversation with Anna, I also learned that she was actually saving money by only eating 30 gold coin hard rolls every day. Such a heart-wrenching story. To repay Anna for her training assistance, I treated her the most expensive barbecue set, but instead she loudly swore her loyalty to me. She even said that no matter what, even if I jumped into a pit of fire, she would follow me. She begged me not to abandon her. After finishing that touching meal, we have arrived at the entrance of the maze. At this moment, there are still 10 minutes before the maze starts. Around us, we can see many passersby who look different from usual. These people, like me, are fully equipped, but among them there is also a group of unusual individuals, a group of barbarians unarmed and only carrying Wii. From their stance, it looks like they just finished the ceremony. At this moment, Anna beside me couldn't help but sigh. She recalled the events of the past. To me, she hasn't changed much compared to a month ago. Just then a loud voice was heard, the announcement to enter. As the sound ended, the once crowded square suddenly became spacious. Isn't it time to go in? Anna, standing beside me, couldn't hide her excitement. but I wasn't in a hurry to enter. I explained to Anna, I want to try something. I read in a book that entering the maze when the space is unstable can bring about miracles. But I hadn't finished speaking yet, Anna Hurley said. She couldn't understand such complex content. She would follow my instructions. As I persisted, her face gradually started to show signs of unease. At this moment, there was only about 1 minute left before the entrance closed, and the size of the entrance now was about the same as when I first entered. When I heard the words "the gate will close soon" echoed instantly. With Anna in tow, I decisively entered the labyrinth. After passing through the entrance, when I opened my eyes again, all I saw was endless darkness. Anna's frantic cry. I calmly lit the torch I had prepared earlier. Just as I expected, I had entered during the unstable phase of the entrance magic. We actually arrived directly at the entrance to the second floor. I'm liking this race more and more, because the tribe's first female warrior is going to have my child. Just not long ago, after a month of careful preparation, we will head to the secret realm again. The size of the entrance now is about the same as when I first entered. Space. I decisively entered the secret realm with Anna. When I opened my eyes again, all I saw was endless darkness. Amid Anna's panicked exclamation, I calmly lit the torch I had prepared earlier. Just as I expected, we entered during the unstable phase of the magic at the entrance. We actually arrived directly at the second floor entrance, while other explorers were still battling monsters and wandering in the darkness. We skipped all that. Then I activated the teleportation array to the second floor. You're the first to open the portal. Experience 2. Soul level. At this moment, Anna still cannot believe everything before her, because the clan leader had told the newcomers that it would take at least 3 days to reach the second level. The scenery before her is indeed terrifying. Every step she takes here makes a creaking sound. She can even hear faint cries. If my memory serves me right, this should be the grave of the undead. Is it because of entering the second layer? I suddenly felt a high-density something. After consulting Anna about this situation, I learned that the game Dungeon in Giant Stones also has a level for agility. The game Dungeon in Giant Stones also has a level for speed. Depending on the level, the soul power also changes. For example, when I use a skill, my mana increases with my level. Even the amount of essence I can absorb will increase as my level rises. Although Anna beside me congratulated me, the situation where I can level up is something she can't understand. The reason I can level up should be that I achieved a milestone, like opening the entrance to the next layer for the first time, which grants me corresponding experience points. This is also a simple way to gain experience. I have to keep this secret. The method to enter the secret realm must remain confidential. If anyone asks about it, if they are an experienced explorer, they will quickly reach the second level. And if they see us beginners ahead of them, they will definitely question us. So it's best for us to keep a low profile, because in this world, compared to monsters, I'm far more afraid of those damn explorers. Scene change. Right now I'm doing something incredibly awkward. Although other explorers have already used this method, actually doing it is really uncomfortable. I call this the Barbarian candle mode. The torches here are a magical tool. Once you light it, it will burn continuously for 3 days. The Tome of the Undead has much stronger monsters than the Goblin Forest, but there are no traps here. So for barbarians who love to charge head-on, this place is actually more suitable for us. At this moment, Anna noticed 3 gulls. There are only 3. Maybe it's because it's the first day. Starting on the 3rd day, the number of monsters will double. Anna, at this moment, shouts that she hasn't stretched her muscles in a long time. Excitedly, she rushes to the front to meet these monsters. She truly is the top female warrior among the barbarians. With just one encounter, she routed the enemy. But this Anna, the next second, cries out and hugs my neck tightly. It turns out that someone with her physique is also afraid of demons. This is a female demon. In most cases, she won't actively attack people, so we can ignore them. Just don't provoke them. Although I can understand her fear of these things. Doesn't she realize how heavy she is, especially every time she hugs me? I felt like I'd lost half my life. When I saw that the monster making the noise was a skeleton soldier, Anna, feeling embarrassed, immediately charged into the group of monsters, brandishing her longsword. At that time, naturally, we also started encountering new monsters. Giant gulls. These were monsters twice the size of normal ones. There are also mutated skeleton warriors and skeleton archers, but these monsters pose no danger to us. Because it's still the first day in the dungeon, so the respawned monsters are few in number. Also, my combat power has improved quite a bit since the first time. First of all, the size and weight of Ukyu I'm holding are perfect now, so I can efficiently crush the skulls of these skeletons. Next is the armor that protects my whole body. It allows me to fight more actively. Finally, here's the helmet I specially customized. At a critical moment, it can easily block arrows from archers. Although I'm good at eliminating enemies, there's another companion who's even better than me. At first I didn't understand why barbarians like to shout so loudly, but after this battle, only now do I truly understand the reason, because at this moment, I've been deeply captivated by this pure battle mode. I'm completely enthralled. This feeling is even more exhilarating than being with Owen. This must be due to the barbarian's unrestrained nature. I'm really starting to like this race more and more. Muscles bulging, veins popping. In my opinion, Anna is more like a monster now. Just a short while ago, after Anna and I entered the maze, we had been fighting monsters on the second level for a whole day. Although we made some gains, but during the battles, I also suffered quite a few wounds. But these wounds miraculously healed themselves. This scene made Anna, who was standing by, envious, because this is the immortality technique I spent 600,000 gold coins to brand. The first level of the immortality technique grants natural regeneration. Simple wounds like this can heal in about a minute. It also increases stamina and stamina recovery speed. Although being branded caused me excruciating pain, the effect is truly remarkable. Unconsciously, the terrain had changed. The ground is no longer damp and starts to become hard, and we can hear the banshees howl more clearly. This means we have entered the advanced territory. We will soon face level 8 monsters. But my warning was not over yet. From a distance I sensed heavy footsteps. Then we saw a massive creature. It was an undead creature. This monster in the game is designed to raise the difficulty level. It's a monster that has been specially enhanced in the second floor area. Although I had prepared for it with Anna beforehand, seeing this guy in person, he looks even more terrifying than I expected. As I mentioned before, we only aim for the head. Attacking other areas is pointless. Although it has a human-like form, but standing over 3 meters tall with knives and shields hanging from both arms. To be precise, Tudis have replaced his hands. This should be what's known as the egg substance sword and shield. At this point, Anna charged forward holding a large cane in both hands. Then I also shouted loudly and followed, and used you to attack this guy's side. But is it really the heavy feeling coming from the body? It felt like hitting a solid rock. Although this guy has thick skin and tough flesh, at least the attack just now successfully got his attention. If that's the case, Anna will have a chance to strike his head. Just when I thought the battle would end here, Anna's full force slash with her greatsword was actually deflected. I didn't expect his defense to be this strong. In the game, this guy is known for his incredibly strong defense. It has long been infamous among players. But when it actually starts fighting, I didn't expect it to be this powerful. The area Anna just hit. In just a few seconds, it had already healed completely. This must be due to its passive skill. And just as I was thinking about this, suddenly let out a loud shout. The pressure it gave off was even stronger than when we first clashed. Then to our utter disbelief, it actually used an active skill to summon ghouls. As the ground shook, a group of undead ghouls came charging at us. In this critical moment, I didn't hesitate too much. I told Anna to go deal with the ghouls first. I would take care of the big-headed monster on my own. Although this big guy had a passive skill, but I also possess the art of immortality. Therefore, I do not intend to avoid it. With the most sincere barbarian manners, I directly engage in a brutal face-to-face battle. At this moment, continuous sounds of strikes can be heard around us. Just as we were immersed in our intense duel, Anna also joined the fight. It turns out that during this time, she had already eliminated those ghouls. Her arrival has indeed lightened my burden a lot. Even when this guy was lost in thought, I managed to sneak attack him with a hammer. A fair amount of fresh blood flowed from his ear, but before I could feel overjoyed, his injury started healing up. If any other monster were hit by this attack, it would definitely be a fatal blow. But the recovery ability of this guy in front of us is too strong. Are we going to give up this location and move to a lower level monster area? Just as I was about to back down, the monster suddenly lost its balance and began to wobble. It was Anna who had found an opening. She grabbed one of the 3-meter tall creature's legs and lifted it up. This is a technique I often see in enough fights. The muscles bulged and the veins popped. To me, Anna at that moment looked more like a monster. Immediately I joined the fight as well. When I struck the other ankle that was in contact with the ground with all my strength, there was a muffled grunt. It finally fell heavily to the ground. Then we saw a surprising scene. The large figure moved like a bug, wriggling its body. It can't even stand up on its own. This is really something enjoyable. I really like this kind of battle. Anna likes this kind of battle too. So this is the real battle mode of Barbarians. Undead monster killed to experience. Anna and I, through the instability of space, are completely new beginners. Here I saw an 8-level monster for the first time. Imagine. Just when she was at her wit's end, the monster's body suddenly lost its balance and swayed. It turned out to be Anna, who had found an opening, lifting one of the 3-meter tall creature's legs upwards. This is a technique I often see in enough fights. Muscles bulging, veins popping. To me, Anna at this moment seemed more like a monster. Immediately I joined the fight as well. When I struck the other ankle that was in contact with the ground, a muffled grunt sounded. It finally fell heavily to the ground. Then we saw a surprising sight. This big guy was wriggling its body like a bug. It couldn't even stand up on its own. This is truly a delightful thing. I really enjoy this kind of battle, and also enjoys this kind of battle. So this is the true combat style of barbarians. We finally heard the system's voice. Undead monster killed, 2 experience points gained. Looking at the body turning into light and disappearing, and I flashed bright smiles. Although we don't possess any powerful magic, we relied on sheer brute strength. We successfully killed an 8th level monster, within a shout. At the moment the monster vanished, we saw a magic stone the size of a fist. In this world, a 9th level magic stone can be exchanged for a steamed bun. The value of a steamed bun is about 20 gold coins. An 8th grade magic stone is worth 5 times more than a 9th grade one. In other words, the huge monster we risked our lives to kill is only worth 5 buns. If we add in the summoned Shokutoki, our total harvest this time is 300 gold coins. Then Anna, now aware of the value, suddenly asked me gravely, how much were the buns we ate at the inn? I thought back. They were cream-filled buns. It's roughly the price of 300 gold coins. When Anna heard this, she suddenly showed a mischievous smile and excitedly said, so every time we catch a large monster, it means I can have another cream puff. It has now become her new unit of currency. If it's an 80-20th split, then the monster is just a small portion of bread for her. But it's best not to tell her that. But she still shouted excitedly that she wanted to continue hunting. The disappointment at getting less than expected was short-lived. Watching Anna enthusiastic once more, I unconsciously smiled. Choice. Although my previous companion Owen was also quite good, Owen was ultimately a passive type. When I thought about these things, Owen venturing with his sister suddenly felt a deep sense of regret. Afterward we continued hunting large monsters nearby. Whenever we encountered a large monster, we would shout our ancestors' names together and charge. Then we each grabbed a leg and lifted it to slam it to the ground. Then, like smashing rice cakes, we hacked wildly at his head. The guy quickly turned into light and disappeared. Although the magic stone pouch was filling up much faster, we were still not satisfied. We kept desperately hunting more prey. In just one, we had killed 70 large monsters. Before we knew it, it was already the next day. If we don't manage to kill them within a short time, we'll be surrounded by the food demons they summon. When the enemies leave their range, these monsters won't continue chasing us. So all we need to do is desperately run away. But since this afternoon, if we see more than 2, we can only choose to give up. And so, in the midst of killing and fleeing, we had finished our hunt on the 2nd day. But just as we were about to return to our previous campsite, we encountered another group of explorers for the first time. They were a 3-person team just like us, wandering in the darkness with a torch. And just as both sides were surprised, Anna suddenly spoke with a murderous tone. If there's nothing going on, get the hell out of here. The person on the other end didn't press the issue further. They simply disappeared into the darkness. Then Anna said to me, they know where we are. We need to find a new camp. Humans are unreliable. At that moment I remembered seeing Anna in the library before. She also showed a particularly disgusted expression toward humans. What bad thing happened? Although we were searching for a new campsite, it was hard to find a spot as good as the one we had before. Just then, we heard the sound of painful screams from not far ahead. At the same time, there were pleas for mercy. Normal humans wouldn't beg for their lives like monsters. The situation is clear, someone has been killed. Damn, what the hell is this situation? Just as we were about to flee the scene, a cold voice rang out, and something like a flare shot into the sky, instantly illuminating the surrounding area. Thanks to her, I could also clearly see what was happening at the scene. 4 bodies of the recently deceased are lying on the ground. There are no monsters around. Only traces of a campfire and poison remain. The woman in front of me is actually a marauder who specializes in murder and robbery. The man's throat was pierced by a short sword. Blood splattered directly onto the enemy's face. It was a fatal blow for an ordinary person. For men, it's just a simple superficial wound. But the man's next move immediately stunned the disciples nearby. And just before encountering these disciples, we, unfortunately, witnessed a murder in action. And these people are called plunderers. They specialize in hunting other explorers and using their equipment to generate high profits. Of course, in this world, looting other players is illegal. The punishment for it can even be sex. But as long as no one reports it, there's no way for the enforcers outside the maze to know. It's like when I killed 6 explorers in the first maze. But it's as if they haven't been investigated. The worst case scenario right now is that the raider across from us wasn't wearing a mask. Anna and I saw her face clearly. About 1.7 meters tall, slim and slender build, shoulder-length deep red hair, and a noticeable tattoo under her left eye. Judging from the current situation, if we manage to get out alive, we can definitely accuse the person before us. And I've never seen such professional robbers. Because I've never heard of such plunderers on the second level. That means she left no survivors. There are currently 4 bodies underground. Look at the clothing of these corpses. They all have high-level gear. One of them is even a mage. These people should be adventurers active around the 5th floor, but she was able to easily kill 4 of them without any injuries. This means that her strength has surpassed the 5th floor. Just as I was thinking about the situation in front of me, and Vu runs down. He skillfully removes the equipment from the body. Then he packs each item into his bag one by one, and that enormous longsword fits in smoothly as well. That means this backpack is a very expensive spatial storage bag. At that moment, my thoughts were, instead of envy and jealousy, I felt overwhelming fear. Because of the space bag that Guang possesses, the gap between this guy and us. At this moment, the woman who was busy harvesting suddenly softly spoke. Barbarian, are you all in cahoots? I didn't answer her, and Anna quietly asked me if I wanted to duel with her. She also grabs the great sword on her back. Anna's indeed an incredible warrior. No matter how powerful the enemy is, she is always ready to fight courageously. But if Owen were here, he would have been trembling in fear by now. However, in terms of strength comparison, I can't quite figure it out. We had no chance of winning against the person in front of us, so the only way we could leave here alive was to escape. That was the only option. The moment the flare lost its light, I gave Anna the order to flee, and I told her to escape with all her strength, no matter what. At a time like this, pride meant nothing for survival. We ran desperately in the darkness. Occasionally, I'd check the compass to make sure we were heading in the right direction, because reaching a teleport portal was our only chance of survival. If we weren't wearing beginner equipment, that raider would have likely hunted us down. Just as I felt relieved, another group of adventurers suddenly appeared. There were 4 of them. Although humans are hard to trust, from a certain perspective, this might be a good thing. For explorers, plunderers are a common enemy. If I explain the situation and offer them appropriate compensation, perhaps I can even get help. So I put aside my reservations and directly told them everything I had seen earlier. I hoped to get their help to escape the pursuit. Obviously, the bald man at the front didn't believe what I was saying, but under my oath as a warrior, they eventually believed me, and they agreed to take us in. They also seized the opportunity to add a condition. If we defeated the enemy together, they would take all our belongings. I have no objection to that. The bald man at the front immediately said that he had already set up a formation within a 3-meter radius. If we enter this range, we can hide our figures. This is a very powerful area control concealment skill, although it also has a fatal flaw, which is that those who enter the formation cannot move. To avoid fighting and escape the pursuers behind, I still decided to enter the bald man's formation. However, when Anna and I entered the formation, besides being unable to move, I also felt completely weak. I couldn't even speak. At the same time, I heard the system sound of the characters being subjected to suppression. Then I saw the bald man who had immobilized us. She slowly said with a pale face, "We are really lucky." 2 barbarians actually walked right into our trap. As we were looking for a place to stay in the secret realm, we accidentally discovered the predator hunting players. From my judgment, her strength far surpasses mine and Anna's. In order to have a chance at survival, the moment the lighting effect disappeared, I desperately tried to escape with Anna toward the entrance on the 1st floor, but what I never expected was, after finally getting rid of one human predator, I found myself caught in a trap set by other predators. In this world, humans really cannot be trusted easily. It's clear to see that the bald man now feels quite smug. He even mocked. Are we unable to move or speak? From the equipment, their strength should be similar to ours. And if they have the core skill at this level, it would be the golem's skill. To break free from this skill, one must endure damage. Even a small amount of damage will be enough. They started showing their sharpened teeth. They even expressed regret. After waiting for so many days, they finally captured a woman, but she's from the female barbarian tribe. They even planned to sell our hearts directly. Through their conversation, I could truly feel the ugliness and depravity of these people. Immediately after, the short man with the straw hat pulled out a sharp knife. Am I really gonna die here? Damn it, I made so many preparations to survive. Am I really gonna die here? As the blade pierced towards me, murderous intent swept in on the wind. The blade was aimed right at my neck. With death so close at hand, my brain was racing, thinking quickly. If I want to survive, there's only one chance. The moment my body was hurt. If I could break this skill, there was hope. The sharp blade pierced my throat. At the same time, my nervous system sent a sharp pain. My previously stiff body was relieved. I immediately tilted my head back. It was like a boxer turning his face, the prelude to delivering a powerful blow. In the stunned gaze of the dwarf hat man, I raised the short hammer in my hand and struck his face fiercely. Actually, my situation wasn't great either. Something kept spraying out of my throat. My whole body felt weak and my vision was becoming blurry. But I couldn't just fall here. I barely managed to hold up my body that was about to collapse. Then I pulled the blade out of my neck. I threw it towards Anna, who was not far from me. Although it accidentally stabbed into her chest, at least her body could move again. As I couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed, Anna, like the Grim Reaper, wielded the large knife she was carrying. He cut a nearby archer in half at the waist. Immediately after, he turned and leaped, striking another man's head. The iron helmet that man wore offered no protection. Blood spurted from the knocked-off helmet. The bald man, who was a bit further away, desperately fled the scene. Anna didn't rush to pursue him, because at this moment, I was lying on the ground, covered in blood. In Anna's eyes, my condition must have looked like I was about to die. Otherwise, when I used my last bit of strength to shout elixir, she wouldn't have picked me up. She even painfully swore to avenge me or something like that. But just as I was about to die, Anna took out the life-saving elixir, giving me a chance at rebirth. Actually, this was also thanks to the immortality technique I imprinted last time. Otherwise, I would have died long ago. Only when she saw the wound on my neck slowly healing, did Anna finally relax. She even praised me, saying that being able to survive after having my neck pierced made me the most incredible barbarian warrior she had ever seen. From then on, in her eyes, this wound should be a symbol of some kind of metal, I suppose. Then we waited for the injury to heal. After collecting all of the other person's equipment, I led Anna to chase after the bald man's escape route. Fortunately, it didn't take long before we caught this guy. It was clear that at this moment, Anna absolutely hated this guy. However, to escape from the terrifying woman behind, we would need to use the bald man's skills. And just then, with a slight sound of air being pierced, a poison needle fiercely stabbed into the bald man's throat. It turns out this woman had already been hiding around us and had been watching us the whole time. She even said that our earlier battle had greatly surprised her. And when I saw this woman, I hesitated not at all. I directly called out Anna's name. There was no need for more words between us. I just called her name. She seemed like she had been waiting for it. She rushed right in front of me. Since there's no escaping, no matter what, then we can only face it head-on. When we were struggling desperately for a slim chance of survival, the raiders in the rear had already hidden around us. They had even been observing our every move. And when I saw this woman, I didn't hesitate this time. I directly called out Anna's name. We didn't need to say anything more to each other. Just calling her name was enough. She responded as if she had been waiting for this moment. She charged straight at me. Since there was no way to escape anyway, I could only face her head-on. Strike. And she even used the gap from dodging to block my strike with a short sword. The blow I gave it everything, yet she remained unfazed. How many essences of power has this woman absorbed? If we can't take her down, then just hold on as best as we can. But just as I was about to let Anna seize the opportunity, I suddenly felt weak all over. How did she manage this? Did she pierce through my armor with just a short sword? Did she even strike my spine? At this moment, Anna screamed the name of her ancestors, and once again charged forward, swinging her large sword. However, before Anna could fully execute her move, the raider swiftly struck across Anna's body, and instantly rendered her incapable of fighting. In just a single exchange, Anna and I became helpless lambs waiting to be slaughtered. At that moment, she stared at us as if delivering a death sentence. Let's give up resisting. Her short sword is coated with a paralyzing poison. My mind is... Everything is dark before my eyes. Equipment strength, combat experience. In every aspect, there's a clear disparity between us. No matter how hard I rack my brains, I can't think of a way to change this situation. But just as I was waiting for death to come, she actually stopped her attack, bent down and said to me, if I swore not to tell anyone about what happened today, she would actually spare my life. Then she had... Actually, when we first met, if I hadn't run away immediately, from the beginning, she intended to make this suggestion, because she owed the barbarians a favor. She even said she would rather not kill the barbarians herself if possible. And hearing this, I finally understood why she had been hiding nearby all along, without taking action. It's like being able to achieve the same result, without getting your hands dirty. Then we all fell into a brief silence. At that moment, Anna Say, who was on the verge of death, said, "Don't believe this woman's words. She's just toying with us. But even if she is toying with us, there's no other choice at this moment. Being toyed with to death, or dying for another reason, it makes no difference." At this moment, the woman was about to speak. She would give me time to consider. However, before he could finish speaking, I shouted loudly without hesitation. I swore by the honor of a barbarian warrior. There was absolutely no need for time to think about this, because there was no other way. And seeing me make a decisive judgment, the woman looked down at me with a strange self-glow. She sprinkled something on my wound. In addition to the injury, my body gradually regained its ability to move. Then after she moved her gaze across me, she asked Anna the same question. However, this straightforward Anna actually refused the chance of survival after a brief moment of thought. She didn't ask any further questions, she simply nodded slightly. But from her action, I could feel even more clearly that Anna would definitely die. Immediately I shouted urgently to Anna, her and swear, "Didn't you promise to obey me? Trust me. Hear my..." Anna showed a quite wronged expression. Fortunately, she finally made a vow in a helpless tone. My life is at stake, what's the use of protecting my pride? After hearing the vow, the woman didn't hesitate and intended to turn around and leave. And watching her departing back, I couldn't help but ask which floor. As for the question with no context, the woman tilted her head and simply replied, "The 8th floor. An adventurer active on the 8th floor. No wonder she's so skilled. Maybe even with 10 more like me, we still wouldn't be a match for her." But I watched her disappearing figure. I silently made up my mind. If there's a next time, the result will definitely be different. After barely escaping from the raiders' hands, we rushed to the first level of the secret realm. No matter what, the chance of encountering high-level thieves here is much lower than the previous level. With the system's prompt, Anna and I materialized in midair after passing through the teleportation array. Sure enough, Anna still couldn't quite get the timing right. Just like last time, she ended up falling back down to the first floor. But when I asked if she was hurt, Anna looked listless, muttered to herself, "Although it hurts a lot, for a warrior who has already lost their dignity, even the right to suffer is gone." From my perspective, her words suggest a very serious situation. It must be a vow to beg for survival, to plead for life. For her, it must be a deeply shameful thing, because most of the barbarian tribes have a very straightforward character. But I can't let her stay like this, constantly sinking into despair. Then I encouraged her, saying, "Only the warriors who survive are strong, because only by living is there a chance to defeat the enemy." But before I finished speaking, Anna interrupted me, saying, "Don't talk too much, because she won't understand, but she can figure out the general meaning. To overcome this humiliation, only then can one become a powerful warrior. You could say that I am this kind of powerful warrior. However, what I actually meant to express earlier wasn't this. But it doesn't matter. As long as she can pick herself up again, that's a good thing. So far, we haven't been able to close our eyes for more than 20 hours. And we've been through so much. I should have been mentally exhausted as well. But at this moment, I still can't fall asleep. Although I don't have extreme impulses like Anna, the bad mood is the same. It's like the feeling when the blonde team rescued me. At that time, the priest refused to treat me. He just discarded me like garbage and gave me charity. But back then, I can only lie on the ground like a dog and take the medicine. Although I'm glad to be alive, I can't forget how I felt back then. I'd made up my mind back then that I would never endure such humiliation again. But today I'm once again facing this kind of shame. So what went wrong? Up to now, I made what I believed to be the best choice under the limited circumstances. On the contrary, the decisions I made were merely to quickly avoid the current predicament. But since entering this world, I had no choice but to act this way. As soon as I opened my eyes, heads started falling, and one absurd event after another kept happening. Because of this, I could only passively prioritize safety in my actions. But if nothing changes from here on, I can't survive like this. If that's the case, then I'll change my plans. Having made up my mind, I woke Anna, who was still asleep, and I also asked for her opinion. If there's a way to become stronger, but it involves considerable danger, I asked Anna what she would decide. But after she heard my words, she answered without hesitation, "Of course I'll take the challenge. Anyway, if I can't get stronger, there's only death. Whether it's an easy path or a difficult one, no matter which path you choose, life will always throw unexpected events your way. Since that's the case, I'll take the initiative. This time, we're the ones starting the trouble. We're going to the rift space in the secret realm, because the pain of not being able to kill me only makes me stronger. There's a rather rare place on the first level of the secret realm. 4 types of monsters appear here simultaneously. For ordinary explorers, it's too dark here, torches are a must. Therefore, the cost effectiveness is quite low. Additionally, in order to reach the second level quickly, there's no need to specifically come here. But because of this place is perfect for hiding something. At this point, we noticed the huge stone tablet blocking our way. It was exactly the same as I remembered, so the secret condition to trigger here is likely the same as well. I then reiterated to Anna standing beside me, "Everything that happens next must remain confidential." Anna didn't hesitate and immediately swore an oath. But then she innocently asked what the rift space meant. Simply put, the rift space is another space within the secret realm. To use a game analogy, it's called a dungeon. This dungeon has a limit on the number of people allowed. The condition to open the first layer of the dungeon is to arrange the crystal cores of the 4 monsters in order. Finally, if you place the disfend in the middle, it will activate the dungeon mechanism. The dungeon has a limit of 5 players. Its difficulty depends on the strength of the matched players. I'm also looking forward to meeting which adventurers here. Congratulations to the character for entering the rift space. The cracks in this world refer to another space within the secret realm. If we compare it to a game, it would be called a dungeon. After entering each level of the dungeon and defeating all the monsters, the next level's space will open up. These cracks also have a cooldown. If you want to wait for the crack to open naturally, you'll have to wait for several months according to the city's time. So I found a way to forcibly open the rift. There are 4 rift spaces on the first floor of the maze. The dungeon we entered is called Blood Castle. It says if the world is about to end with a red sky, and countless crows flying in the air, and in the distance a black castle. Because I added an 8th level crystal core when opening the dungeon, I had anticipated coming to this Blood Castle, but seeing this scene with my own eyes, it definitely gives a strong sense of discomfort. But fortunately, this is a crack in the first layer of space.